Hello, and welcome to Above All Else, a podcast for women looking to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ. I am Brianna Frajowski here with Emily Bird and Jen Kish, and we are going to finish up a conversation that we started a couple of weeks ago. And between then and now, we've had a little bit of some exciting news. So we're going to let Emily share her exciting news.
I got permission.
Yes.
I had told you guys on the live that we had a bird already launched, and we got another bird that's launching soon. And so I've got two girls that are soon to be married. There's going to be two weddings in the bird family 2025. My Clara is engaged.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. So exciting.
It's
So really from
exciting.
like very close in because March is when Adeline got
March,
married. Yeah,
yeah,
March. So
March and
yeah.
November. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
It's
we're
Speaking
we're
of
exciting.
starting.
November,
So it's I don't know if I was supposed to say that or not, but anyways, it'll be out
Oh.
soon.
that's all right. We just won't tell everybody where.
Oh,
Hey, listen,
uh,
November 1st is our anniversary and it falls on a Saturday, so that's a good day. Just throwing it out there, Clara. I'm just kidding. And it's the day after Halloween, so sometimes you can get a discount on some of the news. So you know.
that's a thought too.
Oh man.
Oh, I realize you were November 1st. That's fun.
It's exciting. It was going to be on Halloween, and then I cried and said, and my dad
No.
was like, "No, it's fine. We won't do that." So November 1st. Um,
Oh.
but yes,
Well, we love this boy. His name is Jay. He's an incredible guy, and we're so excited for them. They will build a beautiful life together. So,
Yeah.
the Lord has been so very, very faithful. We have prayed for these men since these girls were in the womb, and we've prayed for their parents as they're raising these men up to be
Mhm.
godly men, solid, who are providers, who are going to love our daughters as Christ loved the church. And um, the Lord has answered. So we got two more that we're still faithfully praying over, and also praying for our girls that they are able to love these men and honor and respect them the way they need to be. So, anyways, just building godly families, and um, just thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. We are, but I never would have thought we'd have had two weddings in 1 year. Oh my
No.
gosh.
Yes. I
so
cannot believe
excited.
it. When Riley told me the date, I was like, "Oh wow, okay, two in 1 year. How fun." That's so exciting.
It is
I
exciting.
I love the little part that we get to be involved with,
Me
my girl
too.
coming up to be part of the shopping and things going on in the coming weeks.
Me
So
too. Me
such a
too. I
sweet,
look
sweet
forward to
thing.
having her here.
Yeah,
It'll
I'm
be sweet.
excited.
It'll be sweet.
It is
Mhm.
an
Fun stuff.
exciting time.
Well, thank you for asking. It is good
No,
news. I'm
we're
excited.
so excited, and we want to celebrate the things that are happening in each other's lives. And so
Absolutely.
we love it. We
Absolutely.
love Claire. I'm just so excited for her.
Me
Um,
too. Me too.
So, we started a couple weeks ago, we started a conversation about raising children with biblical values in this modern world and kind of what that looks like. And we had just come off the heels of having a conversation about social media. And I know that we're about to get really deep into some deep stuff. So I am going to share an icebreaker, just about social media and the dangers of social media. So my sweet mom, the Christmas after my dad passed away, she made us these books. They weren't Shutterfly books, but they were like an ad on Facebook that she found. She clicked on it. And it asked if she wanted to import pictures from Facebook. And she said, of course, it makes it so much easier that way. Little did my sweet mom know after she printed one for my both of my sisters and I, and she did not realize until they were delivered to her that she had selected the option to put in any picture that she had ever been tagged in or posted, which included like memes and all kinds of things. And I don't know. I think it's funny, so I'll say it. But like I said, my dad had passed away in August. This was December, and he passed away from a massive heart attack. And one of the memes that my mom had apparently been like tagged in at one point was like recognizing the signs of a heart attack. And so we're, like in tears laughing because this book is hilarious. There's people we don't even know, like these kids who are now full-grown adults that are playing on a playground that my mom babysat that are in this book. And I'm like, Mom, you don't even know these kids. And then we see this picture that's like how to recognize the signs of a heart attack. And then we all like start crying because we're like sad because it's our first Christmas without dad, but also like this is such a thing that my dad would have thought was hilarious. And we're like, this is amazing. So social media, integrating social media into websites, third-party websites can be very dangerous. So just be very careful. And maybe don't spend a lot of money on three different books until you look through every single page. So, but how do we build these biblical values into our kids at a young age in this modern world? And Jen, you were sharing about one of the things you had mentioned that kind of I have been thinking about a lot lately is that what our kids are exposed to, the things that their friends are exposed to. And so Emily and I were having a conversation about, as a mom who, I work at a Christian school, my children attend a Christian school for 8 hours of the day, my kids could fall prey to whatever it is that their friends are allowed to look at on social media. And it was this, how do we balance that? What does that look like? And, um, thankfully, our school is very much so like kids are not allowed, Braylee's not even allowed to wear her gizmo watch at school, which is great. I'm totally for like, let's keep the technology away from the kids as long as possible. Um, but I think for us, we have to at home instill in Braylee, like she knows she's not allowed to watch YouTube Kids at all. Like she's not allowed to be on YouTube, but she's not allowed to watch YouTube Kids with her friends, with anyone, unless her teacher is showing something that's on YouTube Kids, which she did tell her teacher one time. I'm not allowed to watch YouTube Kids. And her teacher was like, I think your mom's gonna be okay with this. It was like a phonics video, which I was fine with it. We don't let her mindlessly scroll through on our TV YouTube Kids. And so she, having those boundaries set up so that when her friends say, well, I watch YouTube Kids and I'm allowed to do that, Braylee's very fast to say, well, I'm not allowed to do that. I can't do that. I can't watch that. And so for us, that's one of the practical ways that we fight that battle of for 8 hours a day, they're not in my control. Like I only control what I'm instilling in them throughout the rest of their day, their night, that kind of thing. And I know for some parents, that's a question. What do I do? How do I respond when it's not us? They're not exposed to it at our home. They're not exposed to it because of us. They're exposed to it because their friends' parents allow them exposure. Um, and I think from parents who not necessarily, I'm not saying you guys have necessarily had to walk, but you guys have more experience with kids who are old enough to have friends that have been exposed to other things that, my 6-year-old's friends really, you said YouTube Kids. Maybe how do we respond when our kid is exposed? Because I don't think it's a question of if our kid is ever going to be exposed to anything. It's a question of when our kids are exposed. Obviously, we want to be offensive instead of defensive parenting. So we're not just waiting for that exposure to happen, but we're preemptively helping prepare them for that exposure. But how do we respond when our kids, we know these are the biblical values we hold, but now they've been exposed to something that goes against that. And how do we as parents respond when, I mean, when your kid's exposed to something by a friend? I mean, you can't spank your kid's friend. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, my first instinct would be like, I'm just gonna spank them, all of them, every kid, spank them all.
Line them up.
Right. Just, but what do we do? And I know you guys have talked about praying over your kids' friends, and but taking it even that step further, once exposed, what do we do? What are our action steps? And I don't know, that's a curveball of a question. I'm sorry. I don't know who wants to swing at that one, but you guys, I'll let you duke it out. I don't.
I have some thoughts, but I've done a lot of talking. So Emily, you wanna?
You go ahead and run, and then I'll give my thoughts. So you're
Okay.
fine.
So I think that we always respond in truth and not in emotion. So I'm
Yes.
really bad about freaking out. Like they did what, you did what, you saw what. And what I have learned is when I respond with emotion, my teenager who was willing to talk and very open starts to reel it back in, because mom
Mhm.
freaked out. Um, so I think in our home, I've probably been too honest with my kids, but especially when it comes to pornography. When we did have an exposure in our house, I talked to my child, and that child said, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I wish it hadn't happened. It was not that child's fault. It was an exposure." And I said, "Here's the thing I want you to know. The sorry isn't for me. You've not sinned against me. The the Bible is very clear that a sexual sin is a sin against one's own body. So that's between you and the Lord and your future spouse. So I want you to understand that the consequences of this, if continued, what happens if we continue on in these things, is how it affects you. And I'm just real honest. I follow Fight the New Drug is an excellent page for that type of information. There's another one that it'll come to me in a minute, but scientific data backs up what this exposure, and it's not always like it's in the TikTok world. We talk a lot about what our kids are seeing, but who's seeing our kids? When you've got your 13, 14, 15-year-old dancing on the internet, who's watching that? Who is consuming that? Okay, that is terrifying. So not only do we have to be worried about what they're seeing, who is seeing them. So just being very, very honest about how this is going to affect you, mind, body, and soul long term. This doesn't affect you just today. This is something that you will now deal with for the rest of your life.
Right.
So I think we respond honestly and with as little emotion as possible. Paul David Tripp is one of my, and he gets a hard time, but he's one of my favorite guys. But he says in parenting, you need to be more like an umpire than a coach, or more like a referee than a coach. You cannot play into the emotion. You have to somehow try to say, level-headed, these are the facts, this is the call, this is a foul. You're not like, that's a foul. The referee doesn't act like that. So I think that's a really good practical way to, try to be cool. I'm not the best example all the time. I do sometimes let my emotions run. But that in general, I like to try to remember that practice, be more like a referee than a coach. So that's how we approach those things.
Um, and I'm very much the same way. We talk about it, but I've also Bree, when you said we'd rather be offensive than defensive, that's that that is my wheelhouse. That's we and Jen, I love that you said I've been a little bit too honest. I have been very, very honest with my kids, and we've had big conversations when they are much earlier than what or much younger than what I ever would have guessed that I would be doing when you know when I'm that making those statements that you make before you ever have kids. I'm never going to, and then you end up doing it. Yeah, we're talking about sex and pornography and stuff as second graders, and but we've been talking little bits by little bits about body parts and all of that, and how we protect ourselves and nobody has to touch you and so on and so forth. So we've been having those conversations for a long time. And so my girls know that there's nothing I've said this 1,000 times on these podcasts. There's nothing that's too taboo to talk around our dining room table. Um, but before, so talking about offensively, there's a handful of scriptures that that I just continually repeat. And I actually looked it up before we got on here. And ironically, they're both in Psalm 101, and it's verses 3 and 4. And he says, I will put nothing impure before my eyes. And then he says, I will have nothing to do with evil. And so we are always saying that when something comes on the TV that is impure, we cut it off. Jason Bird and I make that example. The other night, we're watching a movie and the F word flies, and it's just me and him in here, and he cuts it off. We've made that a practice. So the girls have seen us doing this all of their days. They do it too. Lindsay brought me a book not too long ago. This has been a couple months ago. And she's like, I can't read this. And there were a handful of words in it that she didn't and when I'm reading those books, and it's been even some of the ones that I'm reading out loud to them, and they know I keep a pen and I just mark through it. I'll even do that on library books, which I'll just put a mark through it. Like, yeah. So the library police will come and grab me. Like, we don't need to be reading that. And so anyways, we mark through all of our books. So they do that too. Lindsay has brought me books like, Mom, look, they are not allowed to be upstairs watching. When they're downstairs, if they watch TV, that is the common space. There's always somebody in the living room, somebody in the kitchen. But we have a movie room in this house, and they are not allowed to watch anything up there by themselves. You have to have accountability. So Aaron and Lindsay keep themselves accountable to each other. YouTube is not allowed. You're never allowed to be on YouTube alone. So there's a lot of things that we've put into place, but I've also shared with them early on my first exposure to pornography, and it was at a sleepover. And I'm at my friend's house. She's got an older brother, and which I just don't even understand why this happened. But the older brother's having sleepover with his buddies. Then my friend is having sleepover with her girlfriend. So it's like a guy girl sleepover, which it wasn't, but it was. And I can still remember them telling us to come into the room that was off of the living room that was kind of like their den. And it is a dirty movie, and can still to this day tell you what was happening on that screen. It has implanted itself into my brain. I can't erase it. And so my girls know that story. And I've told them, I was like, I do not want you having this filth, these images stuck in your head that I don't know how I can take that file out and burn it. And I've asked the Lord, I was like, please remove that, but he hasn't. And so that he hasn't removed it, I'm like, okay, he's left it here so I can tell my children, you don't want this file. You don't want this in your head. And so Jen, when you're saying, we're really careful about sleepovers, we are too. If my daughters if they spend the night at your house, I know you really, 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 really well. And I've known you for a long time. I know how you're raising your kids. I don't mind to have kids come and staying with me, but they also know that there's some rules in the house that, if this child has a cell phone, I get the cell phone in the evening. That's just the rule. And I run, but most of the time, the people that we're hanging out with, they're not sleepover people either. So their mamas probably have the same rule as I do. But So we've put those parameters into place. The girls tell us when they've seen something, when there's something on TV, when there's language, when there's, they will turn it off. We did have an exposure with one of my children, and there was a lot of shame that came with it. And she was younger, and I just knew that there was a marked difference in her attitude. And it was around Halloween, and I couldn't figure out why, what the change was in my girl. And so, and I'm just going through all the scenarios. What has changed her personality? And I told Jason Bird, is like, there's something different, and I can't figure it out. So I began to pray, Lord, you're gonna have to reveal what's going on with this girl. I don't know. But there is a change. And so for 2 weeks, Lord, reveal, reveal, reveal. And lo and behold, we had it was my first, well, I don't guess it was my first smartphone. Well, I guess it was Jason Bird's, maybe his second one. But Verizon had this deal where they gave us a free tablet. Now, this tablet's like, I mean, it's not like the tablets we have now. It's this big old
Mhm.
thing, but it worked really, really well. I had put all these phonics things on it for the little girls. And so it was one that was shared amongst everybody. But this particular daughter had been looking up Halloween outfits. Now, uh, you and I both know that Halloween is so provocative, and so in one click and another click and another click, I found what she had searched through, and what she had ended up seeing, and it had led to pornography from looking for a Halloween outfit. And she discovered that she's human just like the rest of us, and it does something to you. There sends out endorphins, and it makes you feel weird and good and yucky. And but she knew that she shouldn't be looking at this. And she went back a couple times and looked at it again and again. And so there she is dealing with such shame. And so for those 2 weeks, I'm like, Lord, what is it? You've got to reveal what's going on with this daughter of mine. And then that morning when I picked up that tablet, and I still to this day I can't remember what made me go to the history, but I saw what my daughter had been seeing. And as soon as I walked into her room and I held up the tablet, the tears, oh, it was the tears just rolled. And she was so shameful, but she was so glad and thanked me for coming and approaching her, and
Mm.
was so glad to get this off of her chest. And we've I won't tell you that that was our last our last times dealing with this. We've talked about it many, many times. And I will say she flees from it. She flees from it now. But it made such a hard, it was such a hard lesson and such a hard impact of, like, it's that file that you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
It's that file you can't get rid of. And I hate that it does that to us. But she is very, very, very protective of her sisters. And so I'm not glad that any of that happened, but I'm also glad at what she's learned through it, and how she will speak about it to other young girls.
Yeah.
So the Lord, you know how he makes all things new, and he works all things for good, and he's working a really hard thing that happened when she was younger for good. And I would tell you, we have the rules in this house. It's not like I'm just letting her go willy-nilly. It will find your children. So be offensive, talk about it, tell them, okay, this is what we do. As soon as it comes on, Bathsheba, she's up on the roof. David sees her. There was no sin at first, but you know what? He didn't look away. Instead, he looked back and he kept looking back. And instead of cutting it off, Satan just pulls us in. And so we have to be intentional to really, truly not put anything impure in front of our eyes, and to, have nothing to do with evil. We turn it off. We stop it right where it starts. So,
Um, and I think, we've talked, while you were sharing your story, um, I guess we were talking about how do we raise children with biblical values in this modern world. And I just was kind of thinking through, like my first exposure was was not because someone showed me, that someone was like, oh, hey, here it is, a family member, but it's because a family member was actively struggling with an addiction, and we all shared one family computer, like you didn't have 14 different computers, cell phones weren't a thing. And so this is not just and that like thought process of like, can I just take this file and throw it away? Like I just want to, there's shame, right? And the Lord is so good to say, hey, listen, I'm not putting that shame on you. There is no condemnation because you are in me. But
amen.
also, but I mean that guilt and that shame the shame comes from the enemy. The guilt comes from the Holy Spirit. Not necessarily he's guilting me, but yeah, he's convicting me and saying like, hey, listen. And so I was young, like I was very young. And so I think, and this might be completely, I don't know. I know we're talking about raising kids, but like this is a call to parents too. Like do better and be better, because what you can try and hide from your kids, like you can try and be like, okay, well, we're not exposing our kids to that. What are you exposing yourself to? Because if you're exposing yourself to this and you're bringing it into your home and you're saying, and I'm so sorry, I can hear myself getting louder and getting a little bit more passionate. But I'm very passionate about this because that addiction almost destroyed my family. And so, um, and not my addiction, but the addiction of the other person. And so, um, when we're saying this is how we raise up children who have biblical views, we're not, or values, we're not saying, oh, it's just important for your kids. Absolutely not. Like what you're exposing yourself to, your kids will also be exposed to at some point. This was completely by accident. It was not, like I said, nobody sat down and said, hey, look at this. Let me show you this. I was probably, if we're being honest, trying to play some Polly Pocket game because I used to play, you used to play little games on the computer um, and I honestly don't even know how I got there other than the fact that it popped up in the search bar and I clicked it because I didn't know what it was. And I was not looking for it. This is not something I
Mm.
was looking for. I didn't even know, I mean, that this existed, honestly, at that point. And so, as parents, we can't say, okay, I'm going to do these things, but I'm going to protect my kids from it. We have to say, this is the boundary line for all of us. This is where we draw the line. And obviously, pornography is definitely a place where we draw the line way before pornography. But there are ways that pornography enters into our houses in very sly ways. Joseph and I were watching, I don't know what were we trying to watch? I don't remember, some show. Well, and 50 Shades of Grey popped up on the like recently added thing. And jokingly, I was like, hey, we should watch that because jokingly, because I was like, apparently we just completely misunderstood the whole concept of it. And it's not really pornographic and it's not really erotic. And really, it's totally fine because we can justify away the fact that it's just a book and it's just a this and this is just a movie based off of a book. And just so really, I think this got started the other day when I was joking with Joseph, and now the passion's coming out because he was like, "You're so dumb." Because obviously that was definitely something we were not going to watch. But there's so much justification for things like that that are like, well, it's just a book and it's not graphic, there's no pictures. Absolutely not. It's called erotic literature for a purpose, and it will do the same thing. It will ignite the same endorphins, and you feel better about yourself because it's not in this category, but it is. It's just more legal because there's not naked people on the front cover. Sorry.
That's extremely frustrating for me. I remember when it first came out and I started speaking out against it. I actually had a girl leave my Bible study because I spoke out against it. She's like, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, look, this is where I draw the line. Like, I don't care what the culture is telling you about these things. It infuriates me because that is the enemy and that is a backdoor that he has found to make, just smooth it over. This is fine. Everyone's reading this, it's just like when you're in high school, and I don't know if this is true, but I've always heard whatever we do in moderation, our children will do in excess. And so I think that is something that we need to be careful of too. I think that can be positive or negative, but if it's negative, I think the example that was given to me was about alcohol. If you drink alcohol in moderation, your kids will probably drink it in excess. And so I think that what you've hit on, Bria, is so important for us to remember. The Bible says to abstain from the appearance of evil. So
Mhm.
we don't want to have any appearance of evil to cause our younger brother, our children, to stumble. So we have to be very cautious to what standard we're holding ourselves to. And I think we have to be real no nonsense about it. I'm not afraid to be a prude. I'm not afraid for you to think I'm from the 1900s. I am. And this is the way that we're going to live in this house because as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So,
Amen.
Look, she just said, get it, girl, get it. Um, yeah, sorry. And I know that that was a little bit different than the way we had taken it, but I feel that there's just sometimes we justify things as adults. Oh, I'm an adult, I can handle it. No, you cannot handle sin. Sorry. Jesus was literally the only one who took all of that on himself because he's the only one who could handle all of it. Um, I I just love. Anyway, this has been a great conversation. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I know that there's obviously more things that we could say, but I think we have tied it up in a way that's like if we want to raise kids with biblical values in a modern world, we have to set boundaries. I think would be like point one is like, you know what, practicality, we set boundaries. And one of the things that you said, Jen, you were talking about Paul Tripp, and he says in one of his books that I finished a couple months ago is to be an ambassador, not an owner. And so we have to be ambassadors and realize that our job is to make our children ambassadors of Jesus Christ. That's what they are. They are not, we do not own them. They are ambassadors. And so everything we do stems from that idea that we set boundaries because our kids can't, and we want them to be good ambassadors of Jesus Christ. And then, they're going to be exposed to things that you allow in your home. Watch what you allow in your home. Don't allow, if you allow trash in your home, trash is going to get into your kids, and that's unfortunate, but that's the choice that you've made if that's what you have chosen to allow in your home. Um, Responding
So,
without emotion was one of the things you said. I think, I'm sorry, I bullet pointed because I was like, how do we summarize this? We summarize it in we set boundaries. We're raising ambassadors. We're not owners of them. We're there to push them towards Jesus. We don't own them. Jesus owns them. We're to make them look like him. Respond without emotion when your kids are coming up to you saying, hey, this happened. Okay. Because emotion will oftentimes get them to shut down, and we don't want them to shut down. Um, and with that, explaining to them the sin is not against you, the parent. The sin is against the sin is against God and their own body if it is a sexual sin. Um, and then who is seeing your kid? That was the last thing I had. Who, not just remembering if we want to, because who is seeing our kids are the kids, the people that are reaching out to our kids. And they're the ones that are going to, their algorithms are going to sync up. So who's seeing your kid? Because what they're seeing is eventually going to be what your kid is seeing. Um, and then what we do in moderation, our kids do in excess. And man,
That's good.
I was just riding the whole time. Sorry.
Mm.
I was like, oh, and this is how we're going to summarize. So, with those, I know that was a quick, brief overview, but I said if we're going to be practical, let's leave it on a practical note. And those are some practical steps. And then, just not introducing anything evil, right? Psalm 101, which when you write Psalm 101, it looks like Psalm LOL. And I threw myself off a minute ago when I was about to say that, and I was like, that's 101, not
Well,
LOL.
I'm going to hop on here real quick. Psalm 101. I've got it right here. And ver verse 2, I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart. I will
Mm,
not look at anything with approval. Oh, excuse me. I will not. I've got the King James version stored up here. I'm reading NIV. So NIV says, I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart. I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. Popping down to verse 4, the perverse of heart shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with what is evil. And I've got written in the margin here, may my family and I live above reproach.
mm,
Um, I pray that my family, your families, will not have anything to do with evil, that we shut it off right where it starts. So we have to conduct the affairs of our house with a blameless heart. So when you're talking about, okay, this is not just for my kids, but this is for me too. I think that just confirms exactly what you were saying, Bree. Uh, it's not just for the kids, but we parents. If we're bringing in trash, our kids are going to be consuming it as well.
mm.
And so we have to be careful to lead blameless lives. Verse 2. So,
Oh,
anyways, so
oh man, I
that's
was just pulling it up. And verse 3 in the New Living Translation says, I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. I hate all who
hmm
deal crookedly, and I'll have nothing to do with them. So I think that summarizes how do we raise kids with biblical values in a modern generation, in a modern world? There you go. Psalm 101. It begins with us. We don't look at things that are vile and vulgar, and we don't have things to do with, and from our filling ourselves with the word, it overflow. It doesn't, I'm not saying we save them. I'm not saying we save them, that our self, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those are the things we're instilling into our kids because those are the things that are instilled into us. So,
absolutely.
man, okay. Well, sorry. I know I just was like wrapping up and then I was like, well, here we go on another little, but
Sorry.
no, not you, me, because I'm like, and like Emily wrapped it up so beautifully, and I'm like, and girl, let me tell you. So, I was talking about Jesus today at the nail place, and one of the ladies said to me, girl, you were talking about Jesus, and I almost started shouting. And I was like, I'm not sorry for talking about Jesus, just sorry if I made
No,
you feel uncomfortable. She's like, oh no, not at all. So
no. But
very
but the gospel is offensive,
it
and it
is.
should be.
Yeah, it makes us feel bad when it steps on our toes, and that's okay.
Absolutely. That's okay.
So we have thoroughly enjoyed talking today, and we're excited for a couple of weeks from now, and we will hopefully have some not wedding details, like we're not sharing that with everybody in the world, but hopefully we found a dress, and I'm
Hope
so
so too.
excited. I'm just so excited. And then by that time, your girl's going to be moved into college and into a dorm room, and it's going to be so exciting. And you're going to have moved children. And so we're excited for what this next fall is going to bring. And we know that many of you have been following us for 2 years that we've been doing this, which is actually crazy that we're at that point. But we just wanted to let you know really quickly, we talked about it probably a month or two ago, but we're part of a bigger coalition called We the Church. And We the Church is full of church members, really, from all across the world who write articles. There's one author that writes articles based specifically for military families because that's where she is right now, and she's a military wife. And then Jen and Emily and I all write on the site as well as so many other people that aren't us. And so if you are ever looking for something, a resource for parenting, pastoring, I don't know, like men, if you're listening, pastoring, we have a brand new sister podcast called Holy Rooted, and they are going to be on there as well. They are lending their voice about wellness and holiness, and what does the Bible say about that, spiritually being well. And so if you want to check us all out, we're at We the Church, and I will link the Linktree URL, into the comments below or into the description. And that way you guys can find us, because there are so many more resources available, and we want to be able to expose you to anything biblically that you might be seeking counsel on. So we're excited for that. Sorry, that was a long plug, but we're just excited. It's an exciting time. I don't know. It's just exciting. So we will see you guys again in 2 weeks, and have a fabulous rest of your August.